stillness of a Florida home, what should have been a quiet evening filled with family and celebration turned into an unimaginable nightmare. What began as a minor disagreement over a football game spiraled into a tragic chain of events, leaving lives shattered and a community reeling. A mother, a daughter, and the man who once held the title of husband and stepfather, each caught in the destructive grip of anger, addiction, and violence. This is a story not just of loss, but of a broken family and a haunting reminder of how quickly a moment of anger can erase a lifetime of love. As we delve into this tragedy, we are forced to confront the dark side of human emotions and the catastrophic impact of unresolved issues left unchecked. The tragic events unfolded in a quiet Florida neighborhood, sending shockwaves through the local community. It all began with a seemingly trivial argument, one that was fueled by the intensity of a Sunday NFL game. What began as a disagreement quickly escalated into a horrific act of violence that would alter the lives of two families forever. According to authorities, the man, whose name has not been released pending further investigation, had been watching the game at home with his wife and stepdaughter. Tensions reportedly rose as the conversation turned to the outcome of the game. What began as an exchange of opinions soon spiraled out of control, with words exchanged in anger. In a fit of rage, the man shot and killed his wife before turning the weapon on his stepdaughter, who, despite her injuries, managed to survive the horrific ordeal. With law enforcement closing in on the scene, he tragically took his own life, ending not only his own existence but also the lives of those he had once loved. The authorities are still piecing together the exact details of what led to this senseless tragedy, but one thing is clear: what started as a minor disagreement over a sports event became something far more devastating. The community is left grappling with the aftermath of the violence, as they try to make sense of how an argument over a football game could end so catastrophically. As investigators continue their work, questions about the underlying causes of the outburst, whether mental health issues, domestic tension, or something else, remain unanswered. What is certain is that this tragedy is yet another stark reminder of how volatile emotions can be when unresolved conflicts go unchecked, and the far-reaching consequences they can have on innocent lives. The chilling events that unfolded in the early hours of December 22nd began as a simple request, one that would ultimately cost 2 lives and leave a family shattered. Jason Kenney, 47, had been drinking heavily as he sat in front of the TV, watching Monday's NFL game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Indianapolis Colts. His wife, Crystal Kenney, voiced a simple suggestion, a plea for him to turn off the game. What should have been a minor exchange between spouses quickly escalated into a deadly confrontation. According to Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, the disagreement spiraled out of control, with Jason Kenney growing enraged at his wife's suggestion. The tension built, fueled by alcohol and frustration, until it erupted into violence. In a desperate attempt to de-escalate the situation, Crystal Kenney turned to her 12-year-old son for help, instructing him to call 911. But before law enforcement could respond, the violence had already claimed its first victim. Jason Kenney shot and killed his wife, leaving her lifeless on the floor. In the immediate aftermath, he fled the scene, and hours later, he took his own life, unable to face the devastation he had caused. The family, now left reeling from the brutal tragedy, will never be the same. A suggestion to turn off a football game, an argument fueled by alcohol, and a tragic chain of events that ended in murder and suicide. The horrors of that night will haunt a community and a family forever. As Sheriff Judd detailed in his press conference, the senselessness of the crime is made even more heart-wrenching by the presence of a child who witnessed the horrific event unfold. The story is a stark reminder of how fragile human emotions can be, and how quickly a situation can escalate into something tragic when unchecked anger and alcohol mix. The horror deepened as the boy, still in shock from witnessing the unthinkable, ran to a neighbor's house. His frantic footsteps echoed through the quiet neighborhood as he sought refuge and safety from the violence that had erupted in his own home. The sound of gunshots had pierced the air, and in the chaos, the young boy knew something terrible had happened. As he knocked desperately on his neighbor's door, his mind raced with the terror of what he had just seen. Within minutes, responding deputies arrived at the scene. They were met with an unspeakable tragedy. Crystal Kenny lay dead, the victim of a senseless act of violence by her husband, Jason. But the nightmare did not end there. In the same house, they found a 13-year-old girl, severely injured with gunshot wounds to her shoulder and face. Miraculously, she was still alive, though gravely hurt, her injuries a harrowing reminder of the brutality of the situation. As deputies worked to secure the scene and tend to the injured, it became painfully clear that this was no ordinary family dispute gone wrong. The boys' quick thinking and desperate run for help had, in some way, saved the young girl's life. The emotional weight of the tragedy was evident in the police response, with officers clearly shaken by the horrors they were confronting. For the surviving family members, the trauma would last a lifetime. A mother lost, a child wounded, and a home forever changed by the violence that had unfolded in a moment of anger. As investigators pieced together the details, the question remained: how could a situation, sparked by a seemingly harmless disagreement, spiral into such devastation? The echoes of that night would reverberate through the family, the community, and the hearts of those who knew them. In the wake of the devastation, the 13-year-old girl, though physically recovering in the hospital, is left with emotional scars that will last a lifetime. As authorities spoke with her, Sheriff Grady Judd shared a heart-wrenching detail of her account. She said, "I begged him, 'Don't shoot me, don't shoot me, don't shoot me,' and he shot me anyway." The words, simple yet haunting, reveal the desperation in her voice as she pleaded for her life, a plea that fell on deaf ears. The brutal nature of the crime is underscored by this chilling testimony. A young girl, terrified and helpless, faced the cold, unrelenting force of violence in its rawest form. She had begged, but the man she trusted, the man she had likely looked to for protection, turned on her, inflicting the kind of trauma that no child should ever experience. Her survival, while a blessing, does little to erase the horror she endured. As she recovers physically, the emotional toll of that night will be a battle in its own right. For the family, the loss of Crystal Kenny is compounded by the traumatic injury to the girl, whose life has been irrevocably changed in a moment of rage. In the aftermath, the community is left grappling not only with the senselessness of the violence, but also with the haunting image of a child whose last moments with her stepfather were marked by fear and terror. What should have been a safe, loving home turned into a scene of horror, a tragedy that will reverberate far beyond the walls of their home. The young girl's recovery, both physically and emotionally, will be a long journey, one shaped by the brutal memory of that night and the weight of the loss she has suffered. After the devastating shooting, Jason Kenny fled the scene, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a family in anguish. As authorities continued their search, he made a call to his sister, who lived in upstate New York. The conversation was brief and haunting. Jason, in a state of apparent turmoil, confessed to her that he had done something wrong, but the words were vague and laden with guilt. He went on to tell her that it would be the last time they spoke. Those chilling words would become an eerie premonition of the horrors that were to follow. After the call, Jason drove to his father's home, hoping to find refuge, but the deputies were closing in. As they arrived at the property, they found him hiding in a shed, a final act of retreat after his brutal outburst of violence. The deputies attempted to make contact and coax him out, hoping to end the situation peacefully. But in the moments that followed, Jason Kenny, overcome by the gravity of his actions and the irreversible consequences of what he had done, fatally shot himself. The scene was one of tragic finality. The man who had taken the lives of his wife and endangered his stepdaughter's life now lay dead, a victim of his own actions. Sheriff Judd's account of the events painted a picture of a man spiraling out of control, weighed down by guilt and unable to face the damage he had inflicted. As the dust settled and the investigation continued, the full scope of the tragedy became painfully clear. Jason's violent outburst had shattered the lives of his family, leaving behind a broken home, a grieving child, and a community grappling with the aftermath of a senseless act of violence. The phone call to his sister and the tragic end to his life marked the final chapter of a horror story that could have been avoided, had the tension not boiled over in the heat of an argument. For the surviving family members, the road to recovery would be long and fraught with emotional scars. The young girl, still recovering from her injuries, would carry the burden of that night with her for years to come, haunted by the memory of her stepfather's final moments. And the family, left to pick up the pieces, would forever be marked by the violence that shattered their lives. As deputies continued their investigation, they made a chilling discovery that added yet another layer of heartbreak to the already tragic situation. During their search of the family's home, they uncovered a note written by Crystal Kenny to her husband, Jason. The words on the page, simple yet profound, painted a picture of the troubled relationship between the couple and the strain that had been building for some time. The note, as Sheriff Grady Judd revealed, was Crystal's attempt to reach out to her husband in a final plea for help. "You're drinking, you're using cocaine again. This is not the way the family should be. You need God." The note read. It was a desperate cry for intervention, a reminder of the destructive path Jason had been on, a path that had not only affected him but had begun to tear apart the very fabric of his family. The words were heart-wrenching. Crystal had recognized the downward spiral her husband was in, but in her effort to save him, she had also pointed to the deeper issue, a need for spiritual healing and support. She was trying to help him understand that his addiction to alcohol and cocaine was poisoning their lives. But in doing so, she also knew that the damage was severe. Her plea, rooted in concern and love, now stood as a testament to the painful reality that despite her best efforts, she had been unable to pull him back from the brink. This note, written in the final moments of their shared life together, was a painful reminder of how addiction, unchecked and unaddressed, can destroy lives. It also highlighted the deep love Crystal had for her family, even as she struggled with her husband's destructive behavior. She had hoped, in her final words, that Jason might seek help before it was too late. But tragically, her plea went unanswered. The discovery of the note added a new layer of sorrow to an already devastating situation. It was clear that Crystal had tried, in every way she could, to save her family. But in the end, the toxic mix of addiction, violence, and unresolved anger became too much to overcome. The note served as a poignant reminder of the silent battles many families face behind closed doors, battles that without intervention can have deadly consequences. In the aftermath of the tragedy, the surviving children were left with no one to turn to but their extended family. The boy, who had witnessed the horrors of that night and had narrowly escaped with his life, and the 13-year-old girl, still recovering from her physical injuries, now face an uncertain future. In a small glimmer of stability amidst the chaos, the children were placed in the custody of their grandparents. It is with them that they will seek refuge and attempt to heal from the traumatic events that have forever altered the course of their lives. The grandparents, though devastated by the loss of their daughter and the violence that has scarred their grandchildren, now find themselves in the heartbreaking position of having to care for their grandchildren, helping them navigate the difficult path of recovery and emotional healing. For the children, the road ahead will be long and painful. The psychological scars from witnessing the murder of their mother and the self-inflicted death of their stepfather will likely haunt them for years to come. Yet, in the warmth and care of their grandparents, there is hope that they will find the strength to rebuild their lives and slowly learn to live again, despite the heavy burden they now carry. While the community rallies to support them and the legal system works to ensure their safety, the children's future remains fragile, shaped by the trauma they've endured. For now, they will be surrounded by family, who will do their best to shield them from further harm and provide a sense of normalcy in the wake of the devastation. But the emotional wounds, deep and raw, will take time to heal, if they ever truly can. Sheriff Grady Judd's words captured the heart-wrenching reality of the tragedy that had unfolded. The entire family was destroyed. It wasn't just the loss of 2 lives, but the complete shattering of the very fabric of a family that had once celebrated life together. His statement spoke to the emotional devastation experienced by law enforcement officers, who, upon entering the home, were confronted with a striking image that seemed to contrast sharply with the horrific violence that had just transpired. Inside the house, detectives were met with a poignant sight: a beautifully decorated Christmas tree, its branches adorned with twinkling lights and colorful ornaments, and beneath it, piles of carefully wrapped presents, meant to bring joy to a family during the holiday season. It was a haunting reminder of what could have been a moment of festive warmth and togetherness, now overshadowed by violence and loss. The scene, so close to Christmas, seemed like a cruel twist of fate, highlighting the stark contrast between the idealized image of family unity and the tragic reality that had unfolded. In a moment meant to celebrate love, kindness, and the joy of the season, the Kenny family's home had become the setting for an unspeakable tragedy. The image of the Christmas tree, with gifts waiting to be opened, symbolized a future that would never come, a future that had been stolen in the heat of an argument and the madness of addiction. For the detectives who entered that home, the emotional weight of the scene was clear. This wasn't just a case to be solved. It was a devastating reminder of how fragile the bonds of family can be. What should have been a peaceful, joyous time of year had instead become a stark symbol of destruction. As Sheriff Judd noted, this wasn't just the destruction of a family, it was the destruction of an entire future that would never come to be. A Christmas tree, once a symbol of hope, now stood as an eerie reminder of a life lost too soon. This tragic story serves as a heartbreaking reminder of the fragility of human emotions and the devastating consequences that can arise when anger, addiction, and unresolved conflict are left unchecked. What began as a simple argument over a football game spiraled into a senseless act of violence, leaving a mother dead, a young girl wounded, and a family torn apart forever. The image of a Christmas tree, festooned with gifts, beneath which the family had once gathered, now stands as a chilling symbol of what could have been a future filled with love and joy, forever lost. The lesson we take away from this tragedy is clear: the importance of addressing mental health, addiction, and conflict before they reach a breaking point. Crystal Kenny's desperate plea for her husband to seek help is a sobering reminder of how crucial it is to acknowledge the signs of distress in those we love and intervene before it's too late. This story also underscores the need for open communication, emotional support, and professional assistance, especially when dealing with substances like alcohol and drugs, which can cloud judgment and fuel destructive behavior. For the surviving children, the road to healing will be long, but with the right support, they can rebuild their lives. As a community, we must reflect on how we can prevent such tragedies from happening by fostering an environment where mental health issues are addressed openly and without shame. We must learn to listen, to act before it's too late, and to show compassion to those who are struggling. In the end, this tragedy is a call to action for all of us to take better care of each other, to intervene when we see signs of distress, and to ensure that no one suffers in silence. Don't forget to subscribe for more chilling content and hit the notification bell to stay updated.